There's a lot of different rankings out there, a lot of polls out there. We're all sort of projecting, predicting, and it's about time for talking to sort of finish up right now. I mean, talking season is way behind us in my humble opinion. But even so, when you look at those top 10 rankings, I have a funny feeling that the people making those rankings, they don't have the same kind of Saturday experience that you and I do. And I don't mean that in any disrespectful way at all. I just mean I know what our Saturdays are like. You probably hit the couch around 9 a.m. Eastern, depending on what you're thinking about with college game day and big noon kickoff. But then you're dialed in till like 1, 2 a.m. We're watching college football all of the time. So to put it simply, we're calling this poll the nothing but ball poll because we're trusting our eyes, and the criteria is what we see in front of us. We're not going to try and, scheme the metrics too much and really read too heavily into the box score. We're going to utilize that as a tool to complement what we're seeing when we're watching football. So nothing but ball poll. We're going to view our top 10 here, and this is not a projection. This is not a prediction. This is a ranking for the way things stand right now. So without further ado, let's get right into it, baby. At number 10, we got the Clemson Tigers. Now, Clemson, to make sure we're clear, they are on big mover watch. Clemson could shoot up this ranking this time next week. They're at Duke to start on a Monday. I think we still have a lot to learn with them. There's a lot made about Cade Klubnik and Garrett Riley. Cade Klubnik is going to be really, really good at Clemson. Okay, so that's true. I think the other thing that can be true is it might take him a second to get rolling because we only have 2 sample sizes on him. We have the game against North Carolina, which he tore him up. To be real, probably should have torn him up based on what North Carolina has defensively. And then we have the Orange Bowl. Big spot against Tennessee. Had a lot on his plate. We had Will Shipley on this show, the running back for Clemson, and he's like, yeah, we trust him. He just had a lot on his plate that day, and that's not unfair to factor that into the equation. So I think he's going to be great, but we need to still see a little bit more from him before we move Clemson up this list too much more. I love the defense for Clemson. Let me make sure I say that into this mic clearly. I love the linebacking group. I love Jeremiah Trotter. I love Barrett Carter. I love Peter Woods. I love this entire defensive unit. I think they'll be better on the back end of things than they were a season ago. But for us, right now, Clemson's at 10. If they beat a team like Duke on the road, expect them to make some moves going forward. Now, at number 9, this is probably where we have the most, I don't know if the most, but we differ with the other polls on this one. We have Tennessee as our number 9 team in the nothing but ball poll. And the reason why, I know what I saw in that Orange Bowl game from Joe Milton. Do I need a larger sample size like I said with Cade Klubnik? Absolutely. But I have no questions about the tools. I have no questions about the head coach. I have no questions about the system. I'm curious about what that secondary looks like. But if they're even just a touch better, I think Tennessee is going to be a force this year. And I think they should get a little bit more respect than they're getting right now when it comes to them being in that top 10 group. Now they play Virginia in Nashville, so we shouldn't get a tremendous test for the Vols in this first week. But we have them ahead of Clemson. And a lot of other polls have Clemson ahead of Tennessee, and I'm saying why? We just saw them play in the Orange Bowl. No disrespect to Clemson, but Tennessee handled business in that game. You say, well, yeah, there's some pieces that aren't going to be there for Tennessee that were there last year. I'm like, I know a lot of them didn't play in that bowl game. So we got Tennessee as our number 9 team in the nothing but ball poll, and we're going to keep a pulse on this as we keep on rolling. At number 8, we got Penn State. They play West Virginia. They should handle business. I love the young talent at Penn State. Nick Singleton, Katron Allen make up one of the best backfields in the country. Abdul Carter is a heat-seeking missile playing linebacker for them. We had James Franklin on this show, like I just mentioned a few moments ago, and he told us like he hasn't had a defense this deep and this talented in a minute. He thinks they're going to be better on the offensive line. Like you just look at this team on paper, and they have all the makings to make a run at this thing. I need to see Drew Aller in a game. I don't doubt it. I just need to see it. If we're calling this nothing but ball poll, I want to see some ball from Drew Aller. All the ability in the world, have no doubts about him. I just need to see it. Now at number 7, we got Alabama. And what I was saying about Drew Aller is the exact same reason we have Bama at 7. And before you get upset with us about where we have Bama, we have Alabama in our college football playoff. We are extremely high on Alabama. But the reality is they are 125th in returning production, and we don't know who's playing quarterback. I don't think that's outrageously important. I just want to see it on the field. I just want to see them week 2 against Texas and how we stack up. I understand the philosophy. I understand what it's going to look like on paper. I get all that. I'm very high on Alabama. I just want to see them in a game because the majority of these cats we haven't seen in a game. Again, they're 125th in returning production, meaning we haven't seen them that frequently. A lot of pieces. Top 2 classes is all that team is made of. Nick Saban's coaching. I love Alabama. I have them at 7. They will be much higher on this list should they handle business this week and next week. And this week they play Middle Tennessee, so they'll be okay. At number 6, we got LSU. They play Florida State this week. Now, if you watched our prediction show yesterday, that's always at 11 a.m. Eastern, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We got ball on this very show live. You said, JD, you picked LSU to beat Florida State. How do you have them at number 6 and Florida State somewhere else on this list? Well, the reason for that being, we saw what they did a season ago that first game of the year. It's hard for me to put them ahead of a team like Florida State when it was so close and Florida State has so much coming back, and they lost that game last year. Now, I think LSU is going to beat them this year, so make sure that's out in the open. I love the way LSU's built. I think the early key for them this season is going to be able to create pressure. Maybe you dial it up a little bit more with Harold Perkins. When you get Mason Smith back, maybe you get a better push up front and get to the quarterback. Because this secondary is going to need, I think, a little bit of help and a sped up shot clock for whoever's playing quarterback against LSU would be a good way to handle that. Now, at number 5, we have Florida State, and they play LSU. Okay, so understand, 5 and 6 at the very least will look different this time next week. But the reason why I'm so high on Florida State, outside of the LSU game, man, just like the entire season, they're going to be really good. They're number 1 team in returning production from a team that was really good last year. Jordan Travis, back. Jared Verse, back. I mean, we could go down the list here. A lot of pieces. Also, they made some pieces in the portal. Got some great ads for pieces in the portal, I should say. And so all this to say with Florida State, if they're not in the mix in November, if they're not in the ACC title mix, if they're not in the college football playoff mix, it's not a matter of the roster. It means something went wrong internally. Maybe they didn't stay healthy. Maybe they took their eye off the ball. I don't know what it would be, but they have all the makings to be in the race here in November, regardless of what happens Sunday against LSU in Orlando. Now, at number 4, we got USC. And there's going to be some pushback here because of USC's defense. We already know what's going to be said. I would be slow to sell the stock on USC for a couple of reasons. They play Nevada this week, and that's a part of a 5-game stretch where they have a runway to ramp up to what they're going to be when it comes time for meaningful football games. Most notably, the first game that'll be meaningful at Notre Dame, October 14th. So the defense, what it is right now, that's fine. Evaluate it as you want to. I would just be slow to define them from one game. From heck, these next 3 games, I would be very slow to make a definitive statement that USC's defense is going to be the same as last year. It may not be elite, but if it can be improved, you have an offensive juggernaut in Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley, Zachariah Branch was electricity in a bottle. They're going to be just fine. So I like USC a lot, have them as the number 4 team in the country. At number 3, Ohio State at Indiana. A lot of talk about the offense. We're going to talk about it later in the show. I think it's a Ferrari of a system. Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably the best player in the country, not named Caleb Williams or Drake May. I mean, you can have a conversation is what I'm trying to tell you. He's one of the best players in the country. He's really freaking good playing receiver for them. Confidence that the quarterback situation will get figured out. I think it's going to eventually get there. But the defense is extremely slept on because that was the difference last year for them. A couple big plays against Georgia. You know, they had the busted coverage where Georgia hit a deep shot, and that kind of put things in a tricky spot for Ohio State. And then the last drive where they weren't able to cover them up, and A.D. Mitchell catches a touchdown to go ahead. If the defense is a little bit better, if the defense can kind of hold their water in big moments, I have all the confidence in the world that Ohio State is built to win a national title. Now, being built to win a national title and getting it done on the field is one thing. But I feel better about this team than last year's team, right now at least, because of the defensive personnel they have and going into year 2 under Jim Knowles. It's a hard defense to learn. It's a rule-breaking system. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but once they get it down, which you would expect they would have it more down going from year 1 to year 2 in the system, I think that's really going to pay dividends. So no shock here on these last 2. We got Michigan as our second best team, and number 2 team rather, on the Nothing But Ball poll. And there's zero guessing with them. They play East Carolina this week. That's fine. You just know what you're getting with Michigan. Top 5 in returning production. J.J. McCarthy will be dealing. If the weapons around him can step up, you've heard this all offseason long. The pass game this, the pass game that. Even if the pass game stays the same, they're going to be in the college football playoff hunt and in the Big Ten title hunt. Because they're so good up front. They're so good on defense. They have the best backfield in the country. Like, yes, if they want to win a national title, they probably need to get a little bit more in the pass game. But let's not act like Michigan is like a one-dimensional football team. And if we think they are, we should go look at the Ohio State tape, because that should tell you all you need to know. Now, I think it's all about Michigan keeping the blinders on. Similar with what I said about Florida State, a lot of buzz around Michigan this year. A lot of buzz. And even compared to last year, after they made the college football playoff, but they lost Aiden Hutchinson, and they maybe make a switch at quarterback, and they lose a lot on defense. Like, that was kind of what we were all saying this time last year about Michigan. And then wouldn't you know it, they just go and do the exact same thing they did a season ago, except looked a little bit more impressive doing it, in my opinion. So for them, I think it's about handling now a lot of people picking them to win the Big Ten. Whereas before it was still, yeah, that's great, they did it one year, but C.J. Stroud's not going out like that. And then, of course, Michigan did have him go out like that. No shade to C.J. Stroud. Now, the best team in the country here for us, the Nothing But Ball poll, we got Georgia. They are in come and take it mode. Kirby Smart, after they win the national title in Los Angeles, is, I guess, thanking the crowd or sort of firing up the crowd, celebrating with the crowd, and sticks out his fingers. He goes 1 for 1 national title, 2 for 2 national titles, which he had just captured. Y'all, he threw a 3rd finger in there. That is the mission for them. And we've said it a couple times on this show. I want to say it one more time for all the people that are new and tuned in right now. For Georgia, I think a lot of their success will be based on how they handle that pressure from the outside. Because there's a difference between enjoying winning and having joy in getting a victory, and then also having it be more of a exhale. More of a, okay, we won. We can relax now a little bit. So glad we got through that stress. Curious to see the dynamic for Georgia early. Keep an eye on the offensive side of things. And when I say keep an eye, I mean, like, let's be hesitant to define them early as well. They're going to have an acclimation period, I believe. I think it's also worth noting, though, everyone talks about this schedule being so easy and Georgia's just going to roll. I'm like, do we know that for sure? I mean, I feel the same way, that they should run through the schedule. But I'm just saying, man, week 3, you got South Carolina. SEC opponent. We're going to get a good gauge for South Carolina this week, but I'm just saying, Georgia on paper won't play any really meaningful games till November, but just watch a couple of these games for Georgia. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw them have to bow up a little bit before we get to November. So that's the top 10 for us. To give you a quick review, we got Clemson at 10, Tennessee at 9, Penn State at 8, Bama at 7, LSU at 6, Florida State at 5, so there will be some movement there. Those 2 teams play each other this week. USC at 4, Ohio State at 3, Michigan at 2, and the Georgia Bulldogs currently atop the Nothing But Ball poll. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.